Lesson 6. Shaucha. Shaucha is the first of the Niyamas. We have 5 yamas, which is the first limb of yoga. The second limb of yoga consists out of 5 Niyamas. The 5 yamas are refusals. We refuse to participate in violence, in lying, stealing, unchaste behavior, and being controlled by desire. Niyamas are different in nature. Niyamas are principles that we need to live up to. We need to actively implement in our daily lives, in our actions, in our way of thinking. So the first 5 are refusals, denials. The next 5 are of an active nature. We pursue Shaucha. Shaucha is purity. Now, like with the 5 niyamas, most yoga teachers, when they discuss these kind of subjects, they will tell you that Shaucha means you need to take a shower before your yoga class as a form of ritual. I see several of you nodding. I'm not telling lies. And usually the subject is closed with that. Just physical hygiene. That is purity. Now, I once had another yoga teacher. That was in the beginning, long before. That was just at the time that yoga started becoming popular in Korea. There was another foreign yoga teacher who advertised on my yoga page his course. So I sent him a message. I was still an extremist at that time, a radical. So I sent him a message and I asked him, what about purity? You think this is pure to break into my page and advertise your course there? Then he said, he reacted by saying, what do you mean purity? I don't feel defiled, I don't feel dirty. So at that point I basically thought, discussion closed, he has no idea what he's talking about. So I told him, that is not what purity means, but it's okay, just let it go. I mean, personal hygiene, just like not killing your neighbor and not stealing from the supermarket, everybody kind of understands. It's the easy part. You wash your hands, you take a shower once in a while, once a month or so. You clean your house, sure, that is purity. That's the easy part. What is often forgotten or not understood is the more complex part. That is the way that we think, the way that we act and react. Then purity becomes very interesting. Your life will become, your life will never be the same anymore when you start practicing purity. Because from that moment on, life on the surface seems to be very complicated. It's just easier to go with the flow and just whatever you say, and whatever you act and react is just what you do. That is why we experience so much misery in our lives, but we don't realize that because we want the easy way. If you have the courage to walk the difficult path, the difficult way, life will become very rewarding. Purity, I use the Dutch word, means being consequent in your life. The consequent is an English word, but English people or English native speakers tell me it's a word that is not often used in the English language. In the Dutch language, however, it's a word that you hear every day. When you do things that don't make sense, people will say, you are not being consequent. Yesterday you said this, but today you say that. totally unlogical, totally contradictory. Doesn't make sense. Being consequent means, regardless of the circumstances, regardless of your condition, always say and do the same thing. That may sound like common sense, and of course it is, but that's not how we function usually. Because human beings have a tendency to be opportunistic. So although yesterday we said this, today the situation is different. And it's much easier to actually just say that. That is not being consequent. Purity means that you have a straight back. Purity means that you have a spine. You understand that expression? People who are not native English speakers? To have a spine means to have the courage to stick to your opinion, to stick to your principles. My principle is never to present yoga in a fake way. Now that has made my life miserable now and then. But when I try to approach yoga in a commercial way, it feels off, it feels ugly. I cannot look in the mirror at myself when I'm not being consequent. Because I know what yoga has to offer to you, to students, to me, what it has offered me. To distort that into something which we usually do because, well, we don't have so many students. I can get more students if I give them fake yoga, flying yoga, or one of the modern. I just read a message. Somebody reacted to my to a post on my YouTube channel and said, "Here's my email address. Please give me more information because finding 전통 yoga." It was message in Korean. 전통 yoga 찾기 너무 힘들어요. It's very difficult to find traditional yoga. All yoga studios, everybody has to pay the bills. We need to eat when we go home, etc. We have to pay the bills. My principle, my practice of purity for me means I'm not going to compromise on yoga just to make some money. I need to pay the bills, yes, of course. But not by lying or cheating or offering people. So be principled. That is one aspect of purity. If you disapprove something yesterday, today the situation is different. Although it may seem opportunistic to approve of it today, it's not correct. So consequent in this case means being consistent. If something is purple yesterday, it's purple tomorrow, not it's suddenly yellow. But as human beings, we constantly have a tendency to go how the wind blows. Today it's like this, so today I will judge like that. Tomorrow, well, if I stick to my point of yesterday, people are going to argue with me, or I'm not going to, maybe my boss doesn't like me anymore, or, you know. Being consequent, practicing purity means to stick to your values, to stick to your principles, no matter how difficult it may be. So that's not easy. And that is why I told you several times already, most yogis, real yogis, yoga students, they go through a period in which you are an extremist, a rebel, stubborn, radical. Why? Because you become pure. like it or not. It seems like the way that we talk about these things, that it is a choice. I don't want, this is all too complicated, so I'm not going to practice purity no matter what my teacher tells me. But then next year, if you compare yourself next year with 1 year ago, today, you see that you have changed, and that indeed purity, without you being aware of it, has slowly integrated in the way you think and the way you deal with other people and with your boss. Another thing that you notice is that in the beginning, it leads to conflict. Your boss will not like you anymore. A boss wants people working for them who are not rebellious, who are not speaking up, who are not sticking to their principles. One thing that happens as a result of this, because you become more sensitive, more conscious, is naturally you become more pure, based on your increased perception, your increased consciousness. That also means when there is a problem in the company, you will be one of the first to realize what is happening, and more importantly, how to solve the problem. But if you are on a low level of the hierarchy, your manager, your boss, their ego is affected in a negative way when somebody on a lower level has a solution to a problem they are supposed to understand and solve. You become a troubleshooter by nature, which is an asset, of course, is a good thing. But people who are not in control of their ego, and most people are not, they don't like that. In the end, you will see, with time passing, you will more and more pursue to be your own boss, to have some kind of occupation, some kind of business that you can do on your own, or with like-minded people, but not with somebody above you that tells you what to do and what not to do, in many cases of which you will not agree. But that is for later. That is a long-term process that you will go through. Purity, we, much more maybe than the yamas, we commit impurity all the time. Let me give you an example. To make an assessment yesterday, whether I should cancel the course or not today, I sent a message to a friend. Well, maybe I shouldn't call it a friend. Somebody who also walked the dogs on the riverside, so we meet regularly and our dogs play together. She's fluent in English because she lived in Canada for 15 years, educated in Canada. So I sent a message, hey, what's the situation at the moment? Then the reply was, ask someone else. I don't care. Literally, I can show you the cacao top. Ask someone else. I don't care. Ha ha. My first thought is, what the hell? No. My first reaction was more civilized. First I thought, geez. Then I thought, what the hell? And then I thought, what is wrong with you? I didn't say that, I didn't write that. No, this is important. I'm only human, this is my first reaction. But this is usually what we do. Geez, what the hell is wrong with you? And then the conflict starts, the disharmony starts, and everybody feels bad. So I just observed my thoughts a little bit. And every time that I wanted to start pushing the keys with a message, to start a message, I thought, no, that is not pure. No, if I do this, it will lead to a counter reaction. It will lead to an attack. It will lead to irritation. It will lead to aggression. So finally, what I wrote is this. asking because I do not get the nuance from the news. Because I felt something was happening in Yoido about the coronavirus. But so I read some information, and because I'm not fluent in Korean enough, I don't get what is really going on, and I want to know. So my message was very simple. I'm asking because I do not understand the news fully. Sorry if I annoyed you. And then the messages started pouring in. 5, 6 messages in a minute time. Oh, I'm not annoyed, and oh, I'm preoccupied with something else, and I solved the problem by remaining neutral, by not insulting, by not being aggressive. But in fact, what happened is she looked in the mirror and she thought, my initial response was not good. So all the excuses came. Problem solved, no bad feelings on both sides. That is purity. The first reaction is an insult or is aggressive in one form or another. That is impure. Because if you think of it, which most people don't do, which we usually don't do, as yogis you will more and more, you will do. If you think of it, you know it's going to lead to disharmony, conflict, irritation, violence, verbal violence, swear words and what have you. So you will become more and more skillful at detecting what is going on inside your mind, and you will not go along with that. Impure. But it will save you a lot of energy, a lot of time, and a lot of relationships. It's not easy. It means you have to pause. You have to wait a little before you react. And that is incredibly valuable if you develop that quality. And especially with a text message, not so difficult, because you don't have to reply immediately. You can wait a minute and just soak it up. Try to feel the intention behind the text. But when you're face to face with somebody, then it's much more difficult. But that is what diplomacy means. Diplomacy means not to be drawn into a fist fight, verbal fist fight, a verbal conflict, by realizing what is happening and by intercepting your initial reaction and try to smoothen things out. Not easy, but that is purity. If you have the slightest feeling that something is not right, don't do it. That is purity. Purity in words. Shaucha in words. When we discussed the issue of non-lying, satya, I mentioned the issue of giving people a compliment. We do that to our children. We say, we have only one child these days. So you put all your attention to your one child and you tell your child every day how smart they are and how pretty they are and handsome and what have you. The intention is good, but it's not true. Because there are 100,000 other little kids that are also pretty and smart and what have you. You damage your child with such kind of approach. But the same thing happens between adults. Adults tell each other how handsome. I've heard people say handsome. I know that I'm not, so no need to tell me that. But tell me what a nice jacket I'm wearing and I'm happy about that, because yeah, that is another story. We make jokes. And I told you, Dutch people, they make a lot of jokes. We try to make light. You know, Holland is always raining and cloudy, and so people are always grumpy. To deal with that grumpiness, we make jokes all the time. So go to a bar in Holland and everybody is joking. What we very often do is call each other names. But with a laugh, with a smile. You go to another country, to another bar, and you will get punched in the face when you do that. We do that all the time. But there are people, we call that punching somebody under the belt. In boxing, when you box, you have a belt. Those pants, they're very big. There's a belt somewhere around the waist. That is the limit of the pants. It is illegal to punch under the belt. Above the belt, you can hit anywhere you want. From the belt upwards, the body, the face, everything is allowed, but below the belt is illegal. When you say something nasty about somebody and pretend to be a joke, in Holland we call that a punch under the belt. There you are not being pure anymore. People in the bar who see their colleague coming in or the person they meet at the bar every day and calling him a fatso or something, or you have no idea what Dutch people say to each other. With a friendly meaning. But if you hear the words, you think, oh my God, he's going to kill him. No, it's kind of, especially in Amsterdam, the capital where I'm from also, you can hear it in the streets when people meet each other. Hey, from a distance, hey, you mother, this. As an outsider not understanding what's going on, you think, oh my God, they're going to fight. Instead, they hug each other and they beat each other on the shoulder and hey, long time no see. And can you catch the nuance a little bit? The nuance here is that when you call your friend names, you feel the intention behind it. And when you do the same with a nasty intention, that is a punch under the belt or a punch in the gut. And you feel that, you immediately feel that. That is an ugly... People usually do that in the company of others to humiliate you. That is very impure. Never ever engage or go along with this kind of... And if somebody does that to you, just ignore it. It's not worth it. Those kind of people are not worth your attention. If you react, the humiliation only gets worse, and you are giving that person exactly what they want. So control your ego, control your emotion, just let it go. Because not only you understand what's going on, the other people in your company will also see the ugliness of what that person is trying to do there. I think you all recognize that. To be consequent, this is a yogi story. One of the great developments of every practitioner of real yoga is that you gradually and more connect with your heart's content. Your heart's content shows you who you really are. That sounds strange, because you will argue, all of you, oh, I know who I am. My name is this and this and that. I studied that and that school. My parents are this and that. And this is my nationality. I'm a woman, I'm a man. Yes, but that is not who you really are. What you think you are is what you have been made from the moment you were born. Your parents have put impressions into you, have told you how to think, what to think, how to behave. Then you grow a little bit bigger as a kid, you go to school. Then your teachers start telling you what's right, what's wrong, how to think, how to behave. And it becomes even worse when you're old enough to understand what the media is throwing at you, the TV and the magazines and the internet. Because there is a whole load of nonsense there that gives people a certain impression and that makes people identify, but which in reality we are not. I'm not a yogi. I'm not Hapkido. I'm not even Dutch. Yes, maybe my old passport, I was born in Amsterdam and what have you. But that's an identification. An identification is a disconnect with your true characteristics. When I was a child, I wanted to drive a fire truck. Then I wanted to be a doctor, or a pilot, or a businessman. And what the hell am I doing here? Sitting on a cushion, lecturing about life, about yoga. That is what I really want. That is what really makes my heart tick. That is how I ended up there. Because from the moment that I started practicing yoga, not only started healing physically, mentally, I started connecting with what I really wanted. That is a form of purity. Sounds easy, it's not. Once you find out what you really want, you realize that where you are is miles away from where you want to be. And then the whole process starts, where you slowly start to reconstruct your life. You cannot suddenly throw away your identification with being Dutch, with being from Amsterdam, with being a Hapkido specialist, being, or whatever it is that your hobbies or your jobs are. You cannot just suddenly throw that away. Being consequent, purity means that more and more you start following your heart, and less you start following what other people told you to follow. The government, your teachers, your parents, society. We are all indoctrinated by society on a whole, as a whole. So life of a real yogi, that is not easy, but it is very fulfilling. It's very fulfilling to first of all connect with what you truly want in life. It becomes a wish in your heart, not a thought planted there by others. It becomes a feeling deep in your heart. Anytime when you have time to dream, you dream of that. I had a conversation through Messenger with one of you will recognize, about music. Do you know Enigma? Not many people know Enigma. Enigma is yoga in music. Yeah? The music elevates your energy, brings your energy up. And the text also. It will not be easy because there's a lot of singing in French, which I understand, but not everybody does. The text is pure yoga. It is about following your heart. It is about going back to your true nature, to your origin. It is also about dealing with ignorance in society, the people around you and what have you. And music is just It's gorgeous. There's Gregorian chanting. Do you know Gregorian chant? It just gives me goosebumps. I don't listen much to music anymore these days, but while I was preparing to come to Korea, it took me 9 years to prepare. In those 9 years, I finished my education at night school. I finished my yoga training with Ajita, and in the meantime, I had a job, full-time job, and here and there part-time jobs to earn enough money to eventually be able to go to Korea. But to actually go to Korea, that just seemed impossible to do. Where do you start? So I very often, below the diaphragm, I just couldn't imagine actually doing what I, above the diaphragm, was dreaming of doing. Now, my full-time job, after working for several years in a health food store, I started working in a company that maintains the big plants that you see in banks, hospitals, offices, insurance companies. You always see those beautiful plants there, and you ask yourself, how is it possible that those plants survive? That is because once a month somebody comes and checks the plants, waters the plants, and if it doesn't look good anymore, takes it out and put a new one in. I had that kind of job, and because my boss also didn't like me, he gave me a car and he let me service the whole northern province of Holland, from Amsterdam to the northwest coast, where you have the islands from the Netherlands. Once a month I would take a boat and go to an island, Texel, just to water a couple of plants. Wonderful. Playing Enigma. Going through the countryside with my car from one company to another. We had lots of bank branches from Rabobank and ABN Bank, ING Bank. That was my territory, and no boss inside, just driving around from one place to another. And it was the music that kept me alive, that kept my dream alive. Because when you lose your confidence, which is very easy when you think of something such a big step in your life, that you're going to leave your house and your family and your work and everything that is familiar, you leave behind and you go into the unknown without any guidance and help, it's very easy to lose courage. It's very easy to become pessimistic and think, oh my, it's never going to happen. This is one of the reasons why it took 9 years. But it's the music that kept me, meditation, and while just being busy with daily activities, mainly work, Enigma, and deep forest. That music, because that music literally elevates your energy. Why is this important? Because on higher levels of consciousness, that is where you dream, that is where you manifest your wish or your wishes, but that's also where courage is located, as opposed to fear, doubt, and worry. Why am I telling you this in relation to purity? Because I stuck to my dream to go to Korea, while many people told me it's impossible, and I started to believe it's never going to happen myself. I stuck to it. That is also purity. Now, when you meditate, and you, with time passing, you become more and more sensitive, more and more conscious, more and more aware also about your heart's content. You are best connected with that when you close your eyes. You close your eyes in silence, and it automatically comes to the surface of your consciousness. Not what your parents told you, not what your teachers told you or the government is telling you. No, what you really, truly, deep inside your heart want. That is what rises to the surface. So your meditation is instrumental in all this. It simply means you cannot deny it anymore. Why do we deny it or have a tendency to do so subconsciously? Because it's too complicated. It's easier to just get a job, buy a house, start a family, and just stay put for the next 30, 40 years. That's very comfortable, that's very stable. But if once you connect with your heart, you can't do that anymore. You'll find a compromise, you find a way to do, you must have some form of stability, otherwise you cannot function. But you will not anymore be able to do like your brother or sister or your parents did or do. Because something inside you that just came to life will die. Something that other people don't possess. That connection with your true characteristics, hope, dream, wish. That is what makes life beautiful. That is what fuels you. That is what fuels my inspiration and yours. The moment you subject yourself to the boring monotony of what other people tell you to do, to stay put, to not do anything foolish or crazy, that wonderful part inside you, most wonderful part inside you, dies. That I know because it happened to me several times. Is why I'm bald. I started practicing yoga at the age of early 20s, early 20. I just turned 20. So I followed that for a couple of years with Hapkido following. And then I tried to live a normal life. From the age of 25, 26, I tried to live a normal life with a job. And that's when I started losing my hair, really. So then I revived my dream. I didn't want to live like that. It was gray, it was dull. Once you have experienced spiritual life, which sounds superficial, but it really means that you connect with your heart, with your dream, with your deepest hopes. You can lose it, but you can't get rid of it. Once you have felt that connection, you want to go back to it whenever possible. And for me, that meant pushing through my project to go to Korea, no matter how scary it was to leave everything behind. Be consequent. Be consistent. You recognize this? That's why I said before that life will not be the same anymore. Life will not be easy anymore. But life will be wonderful. Everything starts making sense. All the pieces of your puzzle finally will fall into place. But effort needs to be done. Time and time again. Effort that people who have chosen a comfortable life, steady, but stuck, don't have to do. Life will not be the same, life will not be easy, but there is not a day that I don't think life is wonderful. Even when I'm totally miserable. Because even when I'm miserable, I know why I'm miserable. I'm not just suffering the misery, I draw conclusions from it. I try, and I always bring it back to my step, the next development. You know, I live in Yoido, I walk on the park a lot, all those bridges. Almost every week I see fire trucks on top and police and fire, river police and river kujote in the water. Sometimes twice a week. People jump off those bridges to commit suicide. I sometimes thought about going up to that bridge and jump too. I can joke about it, because I won't. Because I know that when I'm in the deepest of my misery, it has a purpose. I know that if you go through the motions, and be honest about yourself and everything that is happening, if you ever jump off that bridge, you will regret for the rest. Well, you have no life anymore, possibly, but I would really like to talk with people that are contemplating suicide. Because you know, today is today. 5 months later, 1 year later, is a totally different situation. And if you could see today from a perspective of 1 year later, you will never, ever, ever think of suicide. Because you know, life always changes. When you're down, you will go up again. And in the same way, when you're up, there will come a moment that you also go down again. So never, ever give up. Don't ever do that. Especially now that you also know that your suffering, your misery has a purpose, not to make you sad or miserable or to make you suffer, but to teach you something, to kick you in the butt and make you grow and move forward and develop. That's purity. Stick to your guns, you say in English. Keep your back straight, we say in Dutch. You know, people who have no principles, I don't know if you know that in English or in Korean language, we say you have no spine. You say that in English? You have no spine. Or you are what do you call these animals? Hepparisar. Hepparisar is a sea creature with no skeleton. What? Jellyfish. You're a jellyfish. That is somebody who has no spine, no principles. Today say left, and tomorrow you say right. This eats at your self-respect if you constantly change your mind just because it's convenient in relation to how you interact with people, but also in relation to yourself. You know what really made me come to Korea? The realization, if I don't do it now, it will never happen and I will regret for the rest of my life. So I just had to overcome that fear and just do it, because I knew I would never forgive myself for not having tried. I had to at least try. I knew I was prepared to fail. I was prepared to come here, spend all my money and fail and have to go back with my tail between my legs. But at least I knew I would be able to move on. Maybe then would have been the right time to buy a house and start a career and what have you. Didn't happen. My courage allowed me actually to stay on that path where my hope brought me. And I thrived in that direction as a yoga teacher. Last year, I quit. I didn't teach yoga for a year. You know that? Last year, January, I cancelled everything. I was done. You know why? There was no inspiration anymore. I didn't feel inspired anymore. My dog had died that last summer, and I was just renting some what do you call it? This modern exercise these days. People are crazy about it. CrossFit. I was renting a CrossFit studio in Saturday and Sunday, and those people lied. The studio was crooked, and they made a lot of noise on Saturday, especially. Sunday was quiet. Very cold in the winter. I had my classes there for 1.5 years, and I thought this is not where I want to be. So I started going down. And then in January, I had my first open day. And I thought, what the hell am I doing? I think it's over. I think I'm done. And then I thought, it's not. If I continue teaching now, it's only to pay the bills. But it's not fair. It's not pure to continue teaching uninspired. Because when I'm inspired, I am in a zone. I go very deep and I throw everything at you that you need to know. When I'm not inspired, it becomes very boring. And the universe has very interesting ways. It brought me a dog in January, the moment that I decided not to teach anymore. If I had continued teaching, I wouldn't have been able to guide that dog, and it took me 3 months to catch him. And when he came home, finally, I couldn't leave him alone. He was breaking down my house if I left him alone, even 5 minutes. So I wouldn't have been able to take him in if I had continued teaching, or the other way around. I wouldn't have been able to continue teaching anyway. But it wasn't even a question, because it's very nice. The pieces of the puzzle just fell into place. The universe created a situation where I was free for that dog to come into my life. 3 months later, his sister joined us. And everybody thought, oh my God, me included. Life was turned upside down. But they had a purpose to come in my life. They inspire me again in an incredible way. Because that's what love does. Love makes you fly symbolically. It brings you into the crown chakra. And that is where inspiration comes. In spiritus, the spirit. But they also taught me to do something that people for 10 years have been telling me to do. To use YouTube. So everything has a purpose. And when I met that dog for the first time and we looked each other in the eyes, that purpose was already there. I recognized potential. While other people, the other people in the park, for example, they only see trouble. They only see a stray dog that is wild. It's going to give you a lot of trouble and what have you. What the hell are you doing? Purity is that when you feel something in your heart that it is meant for you, that you don't ignore it. That feeling was so strong, I knew that if I would ignore this dog and let him be caught by the authorities, with a gun to put him under anesthesia and what have you. They had plans to catch him. The fire brigade, the police, they regularly came to see what they could do. If I had let that happen, like not coming to Korea, I would have regretted that for the rest of my life. I would always have questioned what happened to this dog. And why didn't I help him when he needed me while I could? That's purity. Purity on this level means following your heart and not ignoring it out of a sense of comfort. Because something that you feel you need to do, you anticipate is not going to be easy, is going to become a little bit messy, etc. You know, we think we are happy in life when we can do what we want. I came to the conclusion that my life is not about what I want. My life is about what I feel that I have to do. And the universe is my guide. And if the universe doesn't give me anything to do, I do nothing. That's also purity. I told you last week, when everything is stable, after I wrote all the files, thousands of pages of notes and translations and what have you, there was a period of 2-3 years I had nothing to do. I did nothing. People ask, what do you do the rest of the week? Well, now that you're asking, nothing. Huh? Really? Aren't you bored? No, I'm not. Because I'm very good at spiritual people on the outside may look passive, but on the inside you are contemplating, you are connecting, you stick out your antennas. And when something comes along that is meant for you, then you jump on it with heart and soul. And you can work 18 hours a day if that is required. And you are being fueled by your passion, by your wish, by... You can never be that busy if you're not inspired. Can you follow? I see some of you nodding. I'm really happy that you can see that. The life that we have looks so amazing with all the comfort and luxury that we have. Actually, it has become very poor. Because we have become so comfortable and everything is there that we need, we have lost connection too. Purity on this level is following your heart. What other people couldn't see, people only saw misery when they looked at the dogs. I saw a process that was necessary for me to go through. It brought me back to teaching again. With inspiration, with my heart and soul. As a yogi, you will start to see developments before they happen. As a yogi, you will start to see that everything has a reason, a purpose. And that is when you stop doing what you want to do and start doing what you need to do. You see that? Doing what I want to do. What do I want to do? I don't even know anymore what I want to do. I want to go to the beach. I like the beach. No, then I drive to the beach and then I think, what am I doing here? You just walk around a little bit and you get in the car back home. Okay, what do I want to do? I want to go to Holland. When I'm in Holland, I want to go back to Korea. I'm just waiting for the day that it's time to go back again. What do I want to do? I want to eat snacks from a Dutch snack bar. No, and then when I do, then I eat, and then when I'm done, I regret. I feel like, What I need to do, I will know when it is time to do it. Like when Pada appeared in the park. I looked him in the eye and I knew he needed me and I needed him. Yes, I needed him too. It was, if you look at it on the surface, it was a horrible year. But it was necessary. One step forward, two steps. Two steps forward, one step back. I did what I had to do. And then the telephone rings. I told you this the first day or maybe the second last week. Leda, she called me. She sent a cacao talk and said, Ron, I'm in Yangtze. This guy has a studio in Yoido. You can use it in the weekend if you want. Oh, can I go there and see, have a look? I was skeptical because most studios are too small for my purpose. I just went and I had a look and wow. And my eyes start to twinkle because I know that the universe wants me to start. It was time to, the dogs are stable, it's time to get back and do what you love to do. There's no coincidence in life. We think everything is coincidence. Coincidence does not exist, especially not when you follow your heart. Then the phone rings again. And amazing things start unfolding. I'm not going to tell you yet, because we have to see where it goes. Not always does it end well. But it will be an amazing story for the class when it does work out the way that it looks now. We'll see. So next time when I'm down and uninspired, I'll just remember and know it's only temporary. Just wait out your time, and while doing so, take good care of yourself. Do not end up drinking loads of beer every day and not doing any exercise no. The only thing that you can do when you're doing nothing and don't know what to do is take care of yourself, because that is your asset. My asset is my energy. My health, my energy. Without that, nothing is possible anymore. So that's what I do. Eat well. The dog is walking me. I'm not walking the dog is walking me. And yoga. Almost every day. And when the time comes, you're fully ready, fully prepared. Good attitude, everything is karma. If you have a bad attitude, more bad things will happen to you. Sad, but true. The universe looks down upon you and sees you have a bad attitude, negative. They throw a little more at you, until you have so much pain that you become humble and change your mind. That is why you suffer. Vice versa, if you have a positive attitude, while being in a difficult situation, while suffering, but maintain positive attitude, good things are going to happen. Can take 2 years or 3 years. Practice purity. Keep doing the good things that you know you have to do. Then things will naturally turn around. Not when you want. Because every time you try, you have more misery. When the universe wants. When the universe thinks it's the right time, then things will turn around. Until then, keep yourself busy with basics. With a positive attitude. Help people when they need help. Help animals when they need help. Take good care of your health. Continue exercising, not only when the sun shines, also when it rains. Not easy, but you can do. Because it's a choice. And that choice is not so difficult to make when you understand how it works. And that's why you're here. Because you tell this to other people outside, they don't believe you. They won't believe you. What a nonsense. They're all fairy tales. That's purity also. Believe in yourself. I think that's a song from Enigma, right? Believe in yourself. That is purity. We live in such a superficial society that is all about image. You're either pretty or you're ugly. There is no such thing in the universe. We are all created beautifully. You can even be beautiful with a bald head and a crooked nose. It's not about what you look like, it's about your attitude. The attitude, believe it or not, is very powerful. But you must choose to have an attitude, the right attitude. You can have a bad attitude too, of course, but that will only lead to more trouble in life. Now, page 2 at the bottom, you see negative emotions poison you from within. Do you understand that phrase? Negative emotions poison you from within. But we are human beings, and we have we are emotional beings. Somewhere in the handout you will see some phrase about the astral. Emotion is an astral problem. That is all spiritual diarrhea. It sounds very beautiful, but in reality what it means is we are emotional beings, like it or not. But if you undergo your emotions in an ignorant way, subconsciously, it will lead to everyday suffering and misery and conflict. Conflict with yourself, internal conflict, and conflict with the outside world, with the people around you. And that is how all of us live our lives generally. When you start to become aware of the emotions, you start using them in a positive way. Instead of suffering from an emotion, you try to figure out why that emotion is there. And it will tell you something about your current situation. And when you know that, you can correct that. Or avoid it, if that is still possible. But that is the only practical purpose of emotions. Emotions are there to make you aware of a certain situation that is not desirable, that demands your attention, that demands a correction. But unfortunately, the majority of the people do not recognize that and see emotion only as a mental torture, as a suffering that we are undergoing, thinking that that's just what life is. I just have to accept that I'm suffering. But that's not the reality, if you understand this. The reality is that emotion is there to teach you, to guide you, to make you aware of something that is not correct. And that is what life exists of. Life is not about working 12 hours in an office, Life is not about fulfilling everything that you want to do. You have a bucket list with 100 things, visiting the Eiffel Tower, go to the North Pole, and what have you. That only leads to more anxiety. Life is about your inner life. How you feel, how you think, and more importantly, what you do with all that input, that information. So we don't complain anymore about our misery, about our misfortune. As long as we complain, we have not understood. When we understand what our misery is trying to tell us, there's nothing to complain. On the contrary, you become grateful for your emotions and your misery, because it shows you the way. If you do some effort and reflect on the misery, the emotion, it gives you wise insights, important insights. That lead to improvement, to growth, to development, happiness, well-being, all result from this process. You have to roll up your sleeves. Mine are almost always rolled up. You have to get to work. And actually, if you look at Shaucha, purity, it encompasses all the previous 5 yamas. Shaucha is almost like a summary of non-violence, non-lying, non-stealing, non-unchaste behavior, and non-desire. It all comes together. Each of the yamas, if not observed, is in fact impure. Okay, questions? Okay, let's have a short break.